where do you want to start this thing?
I mean, that's a good question.
It begins. Yeah, I feel like Confined was maybe the first time we actually wrote properly together. Like we
Yeah,
figured out how to write together.
yeah.
But it actually starts before that. Do you want to start at the very beginning?
Let's start at the beginning. Let's
Okay.
go for it.
Yeah. So I think this is probably really good for people who are writers, because it sort of teaches you how to work with other people,
Yeah.
and it also
How long
like
it takes to get there too.
yes, it can take a long time to get there,
Yeah.
but if you find somebody that you can bounce ideas off of, it's like an accelerant where something that might take years for you to figure out will take like an hour to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, like the match the first place to go?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. The Match is the first film that I wrote, the first like screenplay that I wrote, really.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd been writing before that, for quite a while at that point. You wrote short stories, you wrote novels before you
Yeah.
got into screenwriting. And then, yeah, I got into The Match, and it was a short story that I had written with who's now my wife.
Yeah.
We were writing this short story with each other, and we took a scene from that short story, and I turned it into kind of like a little segment.
Yeah.
And did I write the first
I don't remember.
draft?
I don't
think I wrote
remember.
the first draft.
I don't remember if I did any writing on the match or not. Did I do any writing on it, or was it just?
You hacked it to pieces because I
Yeah.
because I the first draft that I wrote was so word heavy. See, it
Okay.
came originally from a short story, so it was
Yeah.
very dialogue heavy.
Yeah.
And I like gave it to you, and you cut out like maybe half, maybe more than half of the dialogue. You're like,
Yeah.
none of this is necessary.
Yeah. So I did basically like a second draft on it.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you had like your first draft, and then I did second draft on it, and then, but I mean, that wasn't. That was kind of our first experience really working together, but I don't think it really shines a light on how it went because that had like a source material beforehand that we could turn to.
Yeah.
I think, there was a couple times where I wrote scripts for you to direct,
Yeah.
and then you would be like, this doesn't work. Like I don't like you, not that it didn't work, but like you couldn't
Right.
see the vision for how to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I couldn't figure out how to get on page with you
Right.
to change it. But Confined is the first time where I think we actually figured it out
Yeah.
after years. This was like years now.
Yeah. Yeah. We had difficulty getting on the same page, but yeah, with Confined, I think that I just told you because it was during quarantine, and I said like we need to do like a feature length film in quarantine, and I think originally you were like let's just make it a short film, and I was like no, like it won't be worth doing if it's not a feature length film.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we got to make this impressive. And I don't even remember like how we came up with the premise entirely. But
Yeah, I think we came up with the premise for it, and then we were just working around like, okay, like we're in quarantine, so we can't use any extra people.
right.
So it's got to be like just a one person on screen
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
dealio. And then we were like, what do we have that we can use? Because we can't really go places either. So we ended up
Yeah.
just using sort of like the cellar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we came up with the basic idea for it. And then I think I did first draft on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did first draft.
I did first draft. Then you were like, okay, like make these changes.
Right.
Like this stuff doesn't work. And I was like, I don't know how to.
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is really
Right.
where like this whole thing came about. And then I was like, if you have the vision for it, like you can write, like you make the changes.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
now, like, just if the foundation is good, you can make changes for it where you're like, okay, we can't do this stuff because we don't have like whatever the resources or the time, or it just doesn't make any sense, or I don't see the vision for it.
Yeah.
And then you came in and
Yeah.
actually changed it. Should we say a little bit what Confined is, the like plot of the story?
Yeah. Yeah. So Confined, is a character, James. He wakes up in a cellar and he's chained to the floor. He has a cuff around his ankle, and there's food and water just out of reach, and a cell phone. There's food and water and a cell phone just out of reach. So yeah, Confined is kind of like his journey of trying to figure out how to survive down there, how to get a hold of the water, and when you wrote the initial script, I think that there was like a bowl of like nuts or seeds or something
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
and we knew we had access to a rat,
yeah,
so there was gonna be like him kind of like training the rat to get the to bring the seeds over to him.
yeah,
And I cut a bunch of the rat stuff out because I was
yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I don't know if we're going to be able to train this rat.
yeah. We're like, what is this? A CGI rat?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
bringing, picking the
Yeah.
seeds up and bringing it over. Yeah.
I cut the song and dance scene out where the rat
Yeah,
where the rat does a little dance. Yeah,
Yeah,
cut
top
that
hat.
out. The top hat. Yeah, we
Yeah.
cut the top hat out. And I made it more about like him kind of using just what little he has access to like to actually create like fashion these tools to like bring the stuff over to him. So like once I rewrote it, basically all of the dialogue in the movie was written by you, and then like all of the action of like things that he was
Yeah.
doing was written by me,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how it ended up being formed. So that, yeah, I guess that was kind of our first real collaboration that actually worked.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah,
Right.
I think it was just, it worked out really well. Just, and I think like for me, I was like, I figured out like I figured out that, like I go, oh, I can, if you give me an idea, I can write something, but it's going to be my own thing.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
can't, it's difficult for me to go outside of what it is that excites me about the story.
Yeah.
You know, like where I'm just,
Yeah.
now I'm just sort of like writing like almost as like a job.
It's your idea now.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it is, and that's kind of a difficult thing for I would imagine most writers, but it's difficult for me too. Like if someone tells me an idea, and like if I'm not like if I don't think it's a good idea, or if I'm not like super excited about it,
Yeah.
then it's difficult for me to get excited about it, and it's difficult for me to be like, how am I going to make this work where it's actually entertaining? And like I say it a lot, but I feel like the most difficult thing to do when filmmaking is entertaining an audience.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's very easy to come up with a good idea, and it's very easy to write something that's intelligent if it's boring. But it's very difficult to make something entertaining. So if somebody gives me an idea and I'm not super thrilled about it, then I do have a little like, at first I have some like hesitance like,
Yeah.
how am I going to actually make this entertaining for an audience?
Yeah. Yeah. I see, like, yeah, I won't even be hesitant. I'll just look at it and be like, that's nice, but I think it should do this. I'll do that.
You're like, this isn't going to work.
Which isn't always in the vision of like the person who's like, I want this story. And then
Right,
I'm like,
right.
well, this story's better. But it's like it's my thing. But I think you're actually better at being like, okay, this is the story. Then I think what you got better at, where I think I still struggle with, is I would do something like Confined. I'd write stuff, and you were like, this stuff doesn't work. Like we can't actually do this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, like just. And then you were like rewrite it, and I was like, well, like you write it, you rewrite it.
Yeah.
And then you did, you know,
Right.
you did write it like in a way that like makes sense. So I think you're actually better at doing that, at like sort of like sticking to within the confines of like, this is the lore of the world, or this is, like you can't just change stuff because you feel like it.
Right. Yeah.
Like you have to stay within the confines of like, here's the world lore, here's what we can do, here's, you know, like in reality, here's...
These are the rules. This is the
Yeah.
original vision.
Yes.
Like, let's stick with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that, yeah, it's sort of a, it's, but yeah, I think, Confined really taught us how to like, I think, work together in that fashion.
Yeah.
Then the
we
Golden
got
Boys
better.
happened. Yeah, we got better at it.
We got better at it. A lot better.
So with the Golden Boys, we just started. You actually came up with the idea for the Golden Boys.
Yeah, kind of on a whim, because I was just thinking, because it was sort of the same, not quite, but with Confined, I was like, oh, I just need to do something in quarantine, so it could be like, you know, me driving, you know, and I'm driving for like an hour, and it's me like talking to people, and we were like, oh, you know, how else could we do this? How else could we film it where it's like one person? So we came up with a different premise. So I kind of was doing that same thing where I was like, I was editing Confined. We weren't even done with Confined yet.
Yeah.
And we were having dinner, and I was like, you know, once I'm done editing Confined, I want to shoot another movie, and like we can shoot something with Hans, and it can be like a road trip type film. And I was like, but it doesn't need to be a road trip. It could be like a local thing. Like, you know, there's like two guys, and they're like chasing like a serial bank robber around. Like they just have clues, and they're just trying to like go from bank to bank to see if they can track him down.
Yeah.
And you were like, I really like that idea. Let's
Yeah.
just do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
So
went right into it.
Yeah, we went like directly into it. Where we maybe how long was the conversation that we had? Maybe like an hour or two.
Maybe an hour and a half, maybe.
Yeah, and we went through basically the entire movie, like character names, locations that they were going to visit, like little things that they were going to do, like the funny scenes, like funny lines for it and stuff like that. And yeah, we just kept like kind of trucking away on it. I think I did. Did I do first draft on that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
you
I
did first draft, and there was like no changes necessary.
I think they were like, we literally were looking through first draft, and we were like, we talked about almost every single one of these things. Got talked about. Like there really wasn't like a bunch of stuff added. I think the only addition I made was the actual Golden Girls.
Yes.
I included the Golden Girls thing.
You named it, and you had the Golden Girls. Like that was all you.
Yeah.
Everything else we'd pretty much figured out in that meeting.
Yeah.
So yeah, like when you had the script for us, and like I read through it, I was like, there's not a single change that needs to be made. We already figured all this stuff out.
Yeah. But it's cool because it took us like 10 years
to get to that point
before we got to get to the point where like now we can actually have a conversation for like an hour or two and potentially get like talk through the entire movie.
Yeah.
And all the plot stuff, all the character stuff. And now like we have the foundation for like an entire movie.
Yeah. Yeah. If I'm working on something by myself, it can easily take me like months to get everything worked out, figure things out. What I've come into the habit of doing now is if I'm writing something and I'm like trying to figure something out, I'll just call you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, can we talk about this script for like 30 minutes?
Yeah.
And then like everything's kind of worked out by the end of the conversation. It's why I thought that we should start doing this podcast. It's just because we're capable of doing this now after years and years and years of working with each other. We understand each other's process so well that like we're able to write at an exponential rate when we work together.
Yeah, I actually thought like this wouldn't work because you were like, yeah, you're like, we'll just introduce an idea and then we'll write like the story around it, you know, like we normally do when we're having a phone conversation. And I was like, that's not gonna work. Where there's gonna be a bunch of like thinking downtime, and you're like, no, there isn't.
Right. We don't do that.
And and then like I was like, oh, there isn't. We don't really have a whole lot of thinking downtime. Like we actually continuously are bouncing stuff off of each other.
Yeah,
we do it really well. We've gotten better and better at it too.
Yeah, we figure it out in real time. There are people that I feel like must be skeptical. You know, there was a a review of the Golden Boys that was like kind of skeptical of the fact that that like we came up with the idea within an hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, that'd be kind of cool. Like, if a critic kind of feels that way, it would be cool to have a podcast that shows in real time. Like, no, we do this all the time. Like, we do this weekly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Did you see that Hallmark movie we wrote?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
review that.
We blew that one out of the park. They're like, that one already exists. But yeah, they've already done that Hallmark movie.
It's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah. Well, I actually had this idea in my head for like I think it was something like 5 to 8 years, somewhere in that range, that I couldn't figure out.
Yeah.
And then I finally got to the point where I was like, I think I'd like to write this thing, but I can't figure out these like different sections. So you and me were talking about it, and like I couldn't figure out like the MacGuffin very well. And dude, it got like worked out instantly.
Yeah.
Where I was like, this could have taken me like a lifetime to figure out, but then like, if you find somebody that you can collaborate with, where you're kind of on the same page and you're open to hearing and like working through things, and your interest is more in the making the story as good as it can be.
Yeah.
Things can happen really fast that you just as, your one brain can't figure out as fast as like 2 or 3 brains,
Right.
Yeah, but my favorite Golden Boys story is that there's a character named Thor in it, and you actually had somebody lined up to play Thor.
Yes.
But then you told me like, I'm not sure. I think he was sick or something like that. Like he's not feeling good, so I'm not sure if he's actually going to show up tomorrow. But we're doing the scene, and you're like, so bring costume.
Right. Yeah.
To play Thor, and I was like, oh, okay, thinking like no big deal. So like I'm literally like setting up lights and like duct taping things together and doing that. And then you're like, okay, get in the costume. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
I get in the costume.
You didn't know you were going to be in the movie until the day of filming.
Like, I can't remember the lines. You're like, we wrote this thing. How do you not? We wrote it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
I mean, same with Bree. Bree, my wife played Catherine.
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same thing. We had an actress that was lined up that we thought might be good, and then she didn't have the schedule that would work, and so Bree ended up stepping in. So both you and Bree kind of like ended up filling in last minute. You very last minute. Like you didn't know until you showed up that you were going to be playing Thor.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I was literally like running around like, setting things up, and I was like cameraman 1 minute and the lighting guy the next minute, and doing sound, and then all of a sudden like I'm like doing props. To now I'm like, oh, now I'm in it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
The fact that we got the Golden Boys made with so little resources is kind of incredible. I mean, it's very, very low budget. But man, it's fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's very entertaining. I'll still throw it on every once in a while.
Yeah.
It's on Tubi.
Yeah, I do too. I crave it. I end up craving it like probably every like 3 to like 6 months. I'll end up craving it.
Yeah.
And then I'll have to like throw it on and watch it, because there is something about it where I just feel like every time I watch it, I want to see it again.
Yeah, that's kind of what I hear most is people when they talk about my movies, they say like the Golden Boys, like I just feel like watching it again. And it's like, man, like the rewatchability, like that's not easy. Like, entertaining an audience is not easy. Like I know it's low budget, but like
it's
and
charming,
people like
though.
it. They want to watch it again. Yeah, it's charming.